Viken, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded not too long ago to two people, one of them being a young, courageous woman by the name of Malala Yousafzai, who had been through a terrible ordeal, managed to survive, and is now a strong advocate for women's rights in Pakistan and globally. How do you see women's role in politics and various walks of life?
Well, Malala is certainly an inspiration to hundreds of millions of women around the world, and not only women, young women, older women, and men as well, and an inspiration to people like myself. I think she's a demonstration of what it means actually to believe in something very strongly, and she herself has a lot of the characteristics, the 5 characteristics I talked about, from authenticity all the way to the vision and the big picture and what you want to achieve, and mostly a sense of urgency. And let's not forget that the situation that Malala had found herself in, relatively recently, she's only 17 years old, was actually the plight of women in Canada, about 100 years ago. And a lot of the values and the rights and the human rights which we take for granted in this country have been fought for and are the result of a tremendous struggle of the feminist movements or all the human rights movements and the labor movements and so on that gave these rights, and and a lot of them were actually achieved by spilling blood. There were demonstrations in the streets, people died, and we defended them, in world wars, those rights to have these freedoms, and we enjoyed them. So Malala's example is just a continuation of dedication and service for the benefit of others. And in fact, that's what politics is about. So she's certainly an inspiration. But I would like to take the debate at one notch further. It's not only just about education. We know, for example, as it's a fact, statistics prove it, that the rate of dropout rates in education is higher among young men than among younger women. We know, for example, statistically that today, in societies, advanced societies, developed countries like in Canada, more women are continuing into higher education than more men. In fact, even in what is known as the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the graduate students, the percentage of graduate students in those fields, master's degrees and above, are higher among women on the global perspective than among men. But not in engineering, for instance. In engineering, there are more men in the graduate studies. But what we are seeing is we are seeing a shift in society towards more education, where women are becoming are taking their place in their rightfully earned place in society. So what will happen is we will be the generation, and if not my generation, definitely the generation that will follow me and your generation will be the generation that will see this equalization in terms of opportunities for women, but also, in fact, I would say might actually even see the reversal. So these are things that have long-term societal impacts and consequences, and a lot of them are for the positive. It's not necessarily for the negative. Actually, a lot of them are for the positive. We know statistically, for example, that societies where women are more in positions of power, of political power, in parliaments, in ministerial positions, even heads of state, we know that those societies in general are highly correlated with a Human Development Index that come in the top 10 or the top 15 of Human Development Index in the United Nations statistics. We know that those societies are less adversarial in terms of solving their internal societal and political problems than in societies where politics is purely dominated by men. Even in democratic societies, when it's dominated by men versus less dominated by men, we know that problem solutions are approached in a much more comprehensive manner. So we know the positive effects. I mean, that is not even a question, a controversial question. We know the positive effects of women's participation in all spheres of society. So the question is, how do we make that happen? Well, there are various approaches. the one approach would be to say, well, we need to have, let's say, quotas and positive discrimination to allow more women to come in. That is one approach, but it's not necessarily the panacea, and it's not a solve-all approach. We know, for example, that we need to have more corporate board of director levels representation, and there's legislation which we can implement so that we can have women's participation. But the question is, women face more challenges than men do in certain things. We know that most of the family, the raising of the family, of the children, are the responsibilities of women. It is the traditional role.
Correct.
And it's not going away. And in fact, it is also a good thing, because again, this is an evolutionary process where women have been the raiser of children. So how do we create the opportunities for women to achieve their political, professional career aspirations, but at the same time not to minimize their role and have them also contribute to their families? So again, this is the holistic approach thing which I'm advocating. And one way we can do that is we could create more flexible work-life balances opportunities. One thing which has been discussed in various interviews with me is this proposal to say, well, how about if we think that we should legislate a work-at-home opportunities for all employees, not necessarily women, but most beneficiaries will be women. And let's say for companies that are above a certain number of employees, we would say, well, we would like you, if you have more than 50% of your employees working from home permanently, not temporarily or flex time, permanently, because now most of the office jobs could be performed from home because of technological innovations, you are going to get a reduction on your income tax. Now, how can we offer that? Well, the reason we can offer that is we can say, well, all of these people in the large companies, they're not going to be, using the infrastructure because they'll be working from home. So they're not going to go into their cars. They're not going to fill it up with gas. They're not going to be polluting the environment. So there are various benefits that will accrue to society from this specific policy. And if we do that, then the lot of the beneficiaries of this policy would be the women workers. However, we need to be careful that they need to be compensated equally as if they were working at the office. And they need to have access to the same level of promotions as if they were working at the office. 15 years ago, it might have been doable, but it was difficult. Today, it's no longer that, because you can participate fully in meetings, you can do all the discussions, and you can do deliverables. And this would be the ultimate flex time arrangement. So by thinking holistically, trying to address an environmental policy issue, a corporate business taxation issue, to encourage investment, hiring practices issue, and addressing a women's issue and family caring issues, all of these together could result in an interesting approach. Now, I don't know what the result of this is just an idea, but we owe it to ourselves. We say, okay, can we try this at a higher level, at a societal level? And let's see, 4 years from now, let's see what the result of it is. It going to be perfect? No. But we can tinker with it. Then we can fine-tune some parts of it. We can learn from our mistakes. We're going to say, okay, this thing that we thought about, maybe this part of the technology is not really that advanced, or maybe we could do this for rural communities more, because we could give them the opportunity to participate in large corporate structures and so on. But the real answer is that if we do nothing, nothing will change. So we need to be actively involved in approaching these issues creatively. So I don't know if I answered your question specifically, but what I'm trying to say is that the approach, I believe, should be again at the macro level, and then to be fine-tuned at the specific level of what solutions can provide to these concerns.
Well, we certainly do live in a global world now with technology, where we can be in a few places at the same time. So obviously.
Yes, obviously, but sometimes it's not necessarily a good thing.
Right.
Sometimes you need also that isolation so that you can think for yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely.